Let's go ahead and jump in here. If I can find the music. Where did it hold on? Did I lose the Nope, there it is.
You're a little rusty there, buddy.
Well, no, I added something to the board.
Oh.
So as we do each and every week, we look back at the weekend that was, and we talk about what we learned this past weekend. So, EJ, we'll start with you this week. What did you learn this past weekend?
What I learned this weekend is that I think probably the first time in quite a while, if certainly recent memory, that this is actually one of the most deepest coach of the year races through 15 weeks I think I've seen in a long time. You have there's about 5 or 6 guys that could legitimately have a case coach of the year this year. You're talking about anywhere from Sean Payton to Mike Tomlin, Kevin O'Connell. I've heard people say Todd Bowles' conversation. There's a lot of guys. Dan Quinn, another one. There's a lot of guys that has a good case for coach of the year. I mean, I have my favorites, obviously, but I just think there's a lot of really good coaching jobs this year that we should be talking about, aside from the top ones, of course. But this is a very deep coach of the year race, 16 weeks in.
Yeah, there's been a lot of really good coaching jobs and coaches that have done more with their teams this year than expected. I think if you really get down and look at it, I think the actual who should / will win the award is a tighter group, but there's a lot of people who you can look at from where we thought they were going to be this season to where we are now heading into the last 3 weeks of the season. That you can go, wow, this group definitely overexceeded what we thought. This was a really hell of a coaching job. Yeah, there's been a lot of really good coaching jobs this year.
Yeah, I mean, while there's a lot of people that I think have their name in the quote running, I really don't think it's more than a 3, maybe 4-legged race down to the wire. I mean, Minnesota with what they did with the ghost of Sam Darnold, Sean Payton and getting Bo Nix to not get nixed. Harbaugh, because we talked about this on the show leading into the regular season. We couldn't name a wide receiver on that roster not named Ladd McConkey, and the only reason why we knew him is because he was drafted by him in the draft.
Name.
And he was a leprechaun. I mean, at the end of the day, we couldn't name anyone that was playing wide receiver. I remember having exchanges with Jim going, why haven't they kicked the tires on a guy like Michael Thomas? Why haven't they kicked the tires on potentially trading for Brandon Cooks? Why haven't they called Cincinnati about trying to get T. Higgins if things went awry in Cincinnati? Like, just off the wall stuff. And I mean, they've gotten superior performances out of Quentin Johnson, who somehow figured out how to catch a football 1 year later. McConkey's been playing out of his mind. Will Dissly's been a top probably 7 tight end in football. So it's one of those things you got to give him a ton of credit for that. The defense played out of its mind. And it's like, I think you can put some other people in the conversation. Dan Quinn, because nobody thought the Commanders were going to be competitive. But I think you look at that and it's a tale of 2 seasons for them. Like, if they would have kept the hot streak and, he didn't get hurt, Jaden Daniels didn't get hurt, and then they lose a couple of games that they probably should have won, he's probably in the running for it. But he kind of fell back to earth with the losses that they probably shouldn't have had.
How would you rank him, Mike? You said you had 3 or 4 guys. How would you rank it? Because I think that's the one interesting part. It's like, who would you put 1, 2, 3 in order right now?
What's the name of the coach for Minnesota?
Kevin O'Connell.
All right, so it's Kevin O'Connell. It's Sean Payton. It's probably Harbaugh after that. It's probably my top 3.
Yeah, I think to me O'Connell should be the.
I think O'Connell's
the guy driving the bus right now.
Yeah,
I think O'Connell's kind of put himself. I'm not going to say clear of the rest of the field, but we're living in a world, and I know Justin Jefferson, to quote Ernest Christian, 1A, 1B in the best wide receiver in football conversation there. But Jordan Addison's been playing out of his mind. They've gotten, good play out of Aaron Jones. He's been able to stay healthy. Shocking. You put him outside of the cold weather and you put him in a dome where it's climate controlled.
Akers is actually a hell of a running back.
Yeah. TJ Hawkinson's come back from the injury. He's looked good. The defense has been playing pretty good, and they're in a spot where with 3 weeks left to go, guess what? Nobody on this panel had that team as the team that was going to be in second place fighting the Detroit Lions for the fucking playoff for the home.
Especially not when JJ McCarthy went down.
Correct. As soon as he went down, we were all looking at it going, all right, so this is like a 6-win team. We're probably going to be like
really, really great. Way to go, Minnesota.
Probably going to have like the 9th pick in the draft. Probably going to draft somebody on the offensive line to help next year. All right, cool. Good talk. Now we're like, hey, they could actually be the 2 seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
You guys agree with that too, Matt and Eagles panel down here? You get O'Connell right now?
They have a very realistic path to the 1.
Oh my! They went out to the 1.
Everybody's tied now, and they play Detroit. Last week of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously it requires an Eagles fall off. 1 game, but that's always possible. But
I don't even think it requires that. Honestly,
do they have a tiebreaker with Philly? Because that's where we're at now.
I think it's the strength of schedule they would get.
Isn't it wins?
Isn't it that?
But isn't it like wins in conference?
Yeah, I think that would be the same.
Like opponents.
I think it would be common opponents, maybe. But
I'll say so. Minnesota. The reason Detroit's currently leading is because they have a better winning percentage in the conference. Eagles and Vikings are both 7-2 currently in the conference. So then, I think the next one is common opponents. I think
Detroit also leads Minnesota because they have the win over Minnesota the first time they play.
Yeah. So the current gambling odds, if these mean anything, Kevin O'Connell leads the pack. Then it's Dan Campbell, Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid, Sean McDermott, Nick Sirianni.
I don't love that Sean McDermott is that low. I get it. It's Josh Allen, and I get it. He's like a fucking cheat code or whatever. But like, man, that's just one that I don't love.
I think the lack thereof in that division probably
it's probably because the Dolphins and the Jets played like
probably hurts the Nick Sirianni calls a bit.
But I don't think people thought Buffalo would be this good either, though. We thought Buffalo would take a
no, but again, it's we knew Buffalo's good. They've been in the top teams in the AFC conversation for the last few years. Combine that with the AFC East being an absolute shit show.
You want
outside of Buffalo, it doesn't mean that he's not doing a good job. It just means when you look at what other coaches and other teams are doing, his doesn't look as strong.
You want to know the fun part about this? I'm looking at the predictions from the start of the season. None of us picked the Bills to win the division.
None of us did?
Ernest had them missing the playoffs altogether, as did Kyle. And we're sitting here going, we knew the Bills were good.
Just goes to prove we know nothing. Mikey B, what did you learn this past week?
Oh shit! What I learned this week is that whoever is scheduling prime time games in the NFL could give less than one fuck about what they put on Amazon Prime or on ESPN, because those 3 games sucked out loud.
Yep.
Rams Niners, no thanks. Both Monday night games, garbage. What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. The Monday Night Football
they don't have any flex scheduling for those. So it's like,
yeah.
But at the beginning of the year, you can see why Rams Niners would have potentially.
Sure, but I mean, who knew we were going to get to, the injury show plus a monsoon?
That was probably a generic, like Kirk Cousins, Monday night, let's get him. No one saw the fall off happening there.
Well, I mean, honestly, on paper, the first one, Minnesota, Chicago, it makes sense. Caleb Williams, JJ McCarthy, battle of first quarterbacks taken. Right. That writes itself. But when you got a in-state rivalry of Pittsburgh versus Philadelphia, you got Buffalo against Detroit. You have
Seattle, Green Bay.
But that was the Sunday night game. That game,
right,
I think.
Sunday night.
So, but I'm saying if you look at it on paper, I think, why are we putting Perk Thuggins, who can't win in the playoff, or can't win on primetime, in a primetime game again?
Well, they still give him the games. Like, and people thought this. How many of you picked the Falcons to win the NFC South?
I did.
I probably did.
I did.
I was the only Buccaneer.
Me, Jim, Ernest, Kyle, and Matt all took the fraud cons.
Okay, so
congrats, Sean.
They all.
But the division isn't over yet, bud.
I know, but we're a few games out. I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is the fact that everyone thought that, and that this was a exciting new home for Kirk, and it was an exciting new start for Atlanta. I think giving them a primetime game with 3 weeks to go didn't seem like a bad idea.
It's a bad idea when it's the Las Vegas Raiders, though.
Yeah.
Oh, but that Raiders team almost made it to the playoffs last year.
They did,
and they were playing decent until Gardner Minshew got hurt and other guys got hurt, and you traded Devontae Adams. But I think the thing to remember too, with at least with Monday night scheduling,
Yeah, it was probably
is
Devontae
there's a limit on how many Monday night
Mhm.
games each team can play. So like I don't have the full
They have
schedule.
to cycle some bad ones in.
Yeah, like I don't know, I don't have the full schedule in front of me, so I don't know how many Monday night games the Eagles and Steelers and Lions and Bills had already played. Plus, and this is kind of why the NFL does put some of those bad teams on Monday night, is it's the only game in town. So like no matter how bad it is, you're still going to be watching because the NFL is king.
It is pretty competitive, obviously.
So like, you put the Steelers, Eagles, and Lions, Bills competing with each other, CBS versus Fox on the 4:00 games on Sunday. You're hoping that people are flipping back and forth between the two. You're hoping that people, are watching one on their TV and one on their iPad or one on their second TV or whatever.
I was more frustrated the fact that the 4:00 for once in
it was
Asia,
loaded.
the 4:00 was better than the 1:00 one.
Yeah, it was a loaded 4:00.
So the Lions are going to end up playing two
What, Sunday night games?
2 Monday night games. The
Ooh.
Bills had 2. Steelers, they had 1 against the Giants, and the Eagles had,
I think, just 1 against
1.
the Falcons, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Week 2.
It is what it is, man. It is what it is sometimes.
I'm just saying, when you look at it like this Monday, it kind of feels like a real stinker. I get it. Like Derek Carr versus Jordan Love, Saints versus
when you
Packers.
had the Lions at 2, did that include the one they have coming up?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, they played one that they won, and then they play the Niners week 17, which on paper, again, that sounds like a game that you're dying to see
That was
if all the
potentially a
parties
playoff preview with 2
stay
weeks to
healthy.
play, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a maximum Monday night. I think it's a maximum
Prime time in general.
Yeah, prime time in general. So
And
that would count Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. And I think they want to keep some of the later weeks potential for flex games for some of the bigger games as we get towards the end of the year.
No, like I said,
Yeah.
I get that part, but like some of these.
Oh, and especially when you're doing 2, I guess if you have 2 bad ones.
Yeah, say if you can give me one.
Give me one
decent-
decent one.
I mean, if you put, you know what?
Which the Falcons Raiders ended up coming down to the wire at least.
Houston versus Miami, you put that in instead of one of them, at least on paper, that sounds like 2 teams that are playing potentially for a playoff spot.
Sure.
I could have gotten behind it, even though Tua didn't play real great. Sorry, Devin.
Stinks.
Uh-oh.
I'll say it. He stinks.
He definitely stunk on fucking Sunday.
Like whether it's the concussion, the fear of concussion, whether it's he's just not good. I don't know. All right, Matt, what did you learn this past weekend?
That no matter what the Philadelphia Eagles do, the media is going to find something to complain about. And it's extended because it used to just be the Philly media, which I tolerated because I could tune out. But now it's everyone. It's everyone just nitpicking what's happening on the sideline, like adults don't have conversations with other adults ever. So I guess unless the Eagles, after every play, just give each other a polite nod and then sit in silence for the next series until they're back on the field, there's going to be something more to fuss about. And I don't get it anymore.
Matt, is Philadelphia a very unhappy city in general?
Yes.
In general.
It's a chip on the shoulder kind of city. I feel like, people feel underappreciated and like it's just kind of, but when the Eagles win, it helps, it's that kind of place.
It helps the fans to an extent,
right?
But it infuriates the media.
Right, because there's nothing negative to write about, so they have to go find it.
They have to go searching for it, and now it's extended.
No, I don't know the full context because I didn't care to really dig into it. But like, what wasn't the drama or supposed drama this week stemming from something that Brandon Graham apparently said?
That was last week.
Last week he's the one that pointed out that there was a rift between potentially AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, and that there was a problem with the passing game.
And then AJ Brown said their celebration was to let everyone know to shut up, and the media was appalled. They're like, "We didn't create this story. You guys did." When it was like, okay, he said one word passing, and all of a sudden it was every single player on the Eagles team hates each other was the narrative there. But this week it was Jalen Carter punching the Steelers player in the face. Sirianni went to talk to him. The D-line coach said, I already addressed this, and Nick and the D-line
Yeah,
coach
I saw that. The
had some
D-line
words.
coach like stepped in Sirianni's way and was like, I got it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
and it was a big thing. Like, well, does he have leadership, or like, does he have, does he have the locker room if these other coaches are stepping in? I did. The media down here talked about it on the afternoon show on my ride home. I heard it, so I was like, is this seriously a thing?
Which is wild, because remember when Kelsey like screamed in Andy Reid's face in the Super Bowl, and everyone was just like, "Yeah, who cares?" It was like a thing for 13
I remember
seconds.
it was the Swifties that had the backlash on that one, because they were like, well, if he's yelling at Andy Reid, what's he doing with Taylor behind closed doors?
Yelling at her. That's the answer. He's
yelling at her.
Standard. People Magazine. Standard.
Yeah.
He's demanding money.
Sean, what did you learn this weekend?
I mean, I learned a lot of things. I thought a lot of things started to, we've been talking about the cream rising and the sediment settling at the bottom, and I don't know. I feel the top got a little more muddled, not necessarily by anyone's fault, but I learned in the 4:00 games, particularly Buffalo, Detroit, one, that I'm finding it harder after the last few weeks to call the Buffalo Bills a defensive team. Man, that's a lot of points in 2 weeks that they have given
90 points in 2 weeks.
Yeah, consecutive 40-point. I mean, good Lord, man. I mean, some of that is a healthy Rams team that is catching fire at a good time, but still, that's supposed to be a Sean McDermott defense. I don't think those 2 games are going to help McDermott's Coach of the Year effort at all either. But I also learned that the emergency room and hospital closest to Ford Field is becoming a very busy place, and the Lions are building their own wing. That's what I'm learning, and I think, Jim, you said something when I brought it up. I mean, it's got to be becoming a problem at this point, right? I mean, we said that before Montgomery went down, and so now
that was the 2 more defenders out.
And you have Aleem McNeil, who's not a big stat guy. He's not a big sack guy necessarily, but he is a rock in the center of that defensive line. And now he's gone for the year. Montgomery gone for the year. You had another injury in the secondary that turned out not to be season-ending, but I mean, these guys are dropping like flies up there. It's like they're playing. It's like they're playing in New Jersey. It's hard to really see.
Yeah, the Lions
not affecting things.
The Lions have given up over 101 points in the last 3 weeks to Chicago, Green Bay, and Buffalo.
I mean, every week you got to bring a whole new defense up to speed. 2 weeks ago, they brought in 3 new linebackers, including Quan Alexander. And trying to get them to like not only be on the defense but like lead it. Like you have like a middle linebacking tandem that hasn't played together. That's a big ask, especially in the second week of it, to go against Josh Allen. So I don't know what you can take from it, but I mean, if you're looking at a number 1 seed, I think it's going to become a problem if you're going to have to compete with these teams at the top. I mean, they're obviously a playoff team that's already determined.
Right.
But you start to ask yourself, like, if you drop another one, or, if you drop one here this week, I don't know if they're going to, but if it were to happen, you got to start to ask you, like, we got to keep some guys healthy, right? Like, we got to figure this out. Like, if we're up early,
you have 3 physical games. Like, you have 3 physical games left on the schedule. You're at Chicago, you're at San Francisco, who even at whatever condition they're in now are a physical team, and then you host Minnesota to close the year.
Well, in Chicago, if your weakness is defense and you're giving up a lot of points, I know Chicago's had its ups and downs and rookie quarterback and everything else, but I mean, they have a lot of weapons to defend against, and if you're doing it with second and third tier guys, you're in trouble. So they're going to have to score.
Since November 30th, Malcolm Rodriguez, linebacker, IR. Mekhi Wingo, D tackle, IR. David Montgomery, MCL, gone. McNeil, D tackle, IR. Carlton Davis, corner, jaw, IR today. Khalil Dorsey, corner, IR today.
Raymond too, right? Because Khalif Raymond's out for the year, and
Correct.
He's their big return guy and third wide receiver. Now they have a Tim Patrick that's plugged in pretty well in that wide receiver role, but I mean, you're just And they've had defenders that have been out for stretches of games. Both
Hutchinson.
starting safeties. Well, yeah, Hutchinson's the big name, but both safeties, Branch and Arnold, have both been out for multiple games this year.
Alec Anzalone, their
Angeloni was the other big one because
it's brutal, man.
Yeah, the two big, that was the second big defensive piece that went, and I mean that's over half your defense. Gone.
Yeah.
And three or four of them are former Pro Bowlers. It's Rodriguez is the one that, for me, like, obviously the other ones are all sad for the Lions, but Rodriguez, like, has been like a rotational guy and was asked to step in and had a dynamo first game. He went in, he had, I think, 10, 12 tackles, had a sack, and then next week, boom, gone.
I mean, if you bring up on ESPN, if you go on the Lions roster page and just go to depth chart and scroll to the defense, it's like the starters that are there right now, backups with random names. The backup strong safety is on IR, and the backup right corner is on IR, and then your third and fourth stringers are all guys that are on injured reserve.
Yeah, it's because
there's no
guys
depth
off the practice squad every week.
I mean, I will say this fascinating name that I'm going to bring up, and this is a discussion that if you guys want to run with it, you can. If not, you can let it sit for a week. David Montgomery out, Jahmyr Gibbs in. Is this a potential landing spot for the now waived Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
It should be.
It's convenient timing. I also think they're going to kick the tires on guys like Jerick McKinnon, who was never signed at the start of the year. So would have presumably fresh legs. There were two big names that were unsigned, and I was looking, and I'm looking at it because I have a fantasy team that's all Lions, and I've been riding these two running backs. I mean, whatever the case, I don't think it's going to happen this week. I think they're going to.
Yeah, I think they're going to play this week.
You're going to have your bell cow. You did draft a running back in the 4th round. I don't think he's the 2. I think Reynolds is going to fill in as the 2.
Is Kareem Hunt available?
Kareem Hunt is not available. Is
he still in Cleveland?
On the Chiefs. They stuck with him over.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So, there's a couple guys that had roles last year. Latavius Murray was the other one I thought that they might kick the tires on. A guy that, you can ask to go up the middle, and, he's whoever it is going to be the B. They're not going to come in and be Gibbs is going to be the workhorse. And so you just need and for that, I would say if you need a guy that's going to be the punch to kind of counter, Murray might not be a bad guy to kick. Like he ran pretty well for a few games last year. You only need him for a stretch. Might not be a bad play if he's in good shape, but I don't know. I think they're going to test it this week. If those backup guys fill in nicely and everything looks fine, I don't think they're going to make a lot of changes. I think Man Campbell's going to.
Let's go, Melvin Gordon.
We got a comment there in the YouTube. Yeah, we did touch on Michael Penix being named the starter in Atlanta. Definitely the right choice. That team is definitely heading the wrong.
The Penix mighty.
There have been some other quarterback changes announced today as well. Titans officially benched.
Did they finally bench Jalen Hurts?
They benched the mayonnaise Messiah. He's done.
Really?
I heard he was going. Yeah, I heard he was
really.
And the Browns, I believe there's speculation that they're going to start DTR instead of Jameis Winston this week.
Yeah, I don't think they've fully committed to that yet, but there's a lot of talk.
Well, if you watch the game, the 2024 Jameis Winston is Jameis Winston.
Yeah,
it's good when it's good. It's bad when it's bad.
Really bad when it's bad. Yep.
Yeah, so
he had a few games to settle in, and defenses watched who he was looking at and when and what sort of tells. He's got to have tells. There's got to be something that defensemen are like, oh, he's doing this.
Yeah,
it's coming right at me.
Well, that and underthrowing his receivers by 4 and 5 yards helps the defense as well.
That helps a lot. Yeah.
All right. So I learned I was going to talk about the Lions thing as well if nobody else did. But I learned 2 things in college football this past weekend. One. Not that I thought they did, but some people did. Army, we learned that Army did not get screwed out of a college football playoff berth.
No, they didn't.
But more importantly, I think we're learning now more than ever in this 12-team playoff era, college football needs to fix the portal timing. I don't know what the easy answer is. I know there's theories about, tightening up the number of buys and making sure you end by the national championship is played on like January 1st or 2nd, and then you open the portal right after. here's the deal, and it really was kind of spotlighted because there's a team playing Saturday at noon who has lost their backup quarterback, who has played multiple times this season due to injury or whatever. And look, I have no problem watching Penn State lose to SMU, but there's no reason that a team competing for a national championship should have to lose starters or immediate backups because of the portal. I'm pro portal. I'm pro all of this stuff that's happening with college football. I think it has made the game very exciting, very unpredictable.
Do it after.
But they need to fix the timing on this.
Well, didn't it like crush Marshall too? I know it's not.
Marshall dropped
they had
out
to
of
drop
their
bowl
game
because everyone transferred.
I mean, here's the deal. I don't. If it impacts,
But that was a coach firing, wasn't it? That spurred that.
No, it's just
No,
they're all
I
going to
thought
the
it
portal. They won the conference. They won the conference title game.
Oh, okay. I saw there
I
was
thought
a
it was
team that
something
like
with the coach.
everybody was leaving because they fired a coach. I didn't see who it was.
No, I think their coach left to take the job at Southern Miss,
Gotcha.
and the majority of the team entered the portal to try to. They want to go. A lot of the players want to go with him, I believe.
That's pretty wild.
Now here's the thing, like, because the portal impacted like Notre Dame and Oregon State's bowl game last year, to where Oregon State was basically depleted, didn't have a head coach. If the Sun Bowl on December whatever gets impacted by transfers, to me that doesn't. And maybe I'm wrong in this assessment. To me, that doesn't impact a whole lot of anything. If anything, it's giving guys playing in practice time that probably wouldn't have gotten playing in as much practice time with those guys leaving. But when it's impacting the teams that are in pursuit of a national championship, I think that exposes like the bigger problem with it.
Well, and I think if teams in the playoff are losing guys, I think you're going to see the NCAA make it, especially if it seems to affect, because you've put a lot of stock and a lot of negotiations and a lot of money, and you're getting a lot of advertising dollars from this playoff. And so if this transfer portal is going to affect it, and I'm kind of with you, national title, whatever. I mean, I would have no problem if like you get to the final two. Is there a bye week before the national title game? Or does it go right from
No,
the
I think
semis?
there's a bye week next week.
there is. They play Friday the 10th. The national title game is Monday the 20th.
Okay, so there's a
That,
week.
wow,
The
that
ninth-
late?
The
I
9th,
would have
the 9th
no
and the 10th are the
problem.
semis, and then the 20th is the national title game.
I
So
personally would have no
Wow.
problem at some point in that 2-week stretch as kind of like, let's keep college football relevant. Let's talk about the national game, but also if you wanted to open the portal, then those two. If somebody wants to go to one of those two teams, they're just going to have to wait.
what I would say is opening the portal in December is detrimental to NCAA as a whole. If you want to open it January 4th after Buffalo and Liberty play in the Bahamas Bowl, which is the last non-playoff bowl game that they have, like I would be okay with that, because then the 9th and 10th are the four best teams in college football.
Yeah, I was going to say get down to your last 4 or your last 2.
So if you want to launch that thing hard launch January 5th, you want to hard launch, the portal opens and you see a slew of names going, all right, we're out. Because here's the deal. Guys are going to sit out bowl games anyways because of draft reasons.
Right. Bowl games are out of the conversation, I think.
I just hate the fact that you have a team who played in a conference title game, won a conference title, their coach is leaving for a different job, and now like they're out of a bowl game altogether. The kids that are staying at Marshall that are trying to help not let that program go from 10-3 to 3-10 next year. Like they're not going to get a chance to play in a bowl game because other people decided that they wanted to try to run with the coach. Now, I don't know that there's any way that you can control that, but it's like, It kind of sucks on the grand scheme of things, but it sucks harder because you open the portal the day the guy takes the job at Southern Miss, like a day later, the portal opens. Of course, you're going to lose 20 guys.
Yeah.
If that portal isn't open, maybe they stay for the bowl game. Maybe they finish out, their time at Marshall, and then they can transfer. And if it's someone who's a serious starter that doesn't want to get themselves hurt, do what everybody else does. Sit out the bowl game.
I think the thing, because like in that scenario, you would still have the potential of your final 4 teams losing guys. So I think what probably needs to be looked at is finding a way to tighten up the schedule so that like the portal opens like the day before the national championship game and is open for like the next 10 days after, so that there's time for the teams that are in the national title game to finish their season, and then guys to and to to finish out their season and then make those decisions.
See, but then that could also be detrimental if you're starting it while teams are still playing football games, because if there is a potential big recruit, I'm going to use Quinn Ewers as the example, just because he's a name that we've heard may go back to school. If you're one of the final 4 teams playing in the playoffs and you know that you're going to need a quarterback, looking at you, the University of Oregon, because Dylan Gabriel is probably going to declare because he's a senior. But say they don't get a chance to get him because they're focused on trying to win a national title, and Ohio State swoops in and picks him up because you didn't even get to have a conversation with him.
Well, I think that's kind of my point. It's like,
but
if you open it up on the 5th, right now there's games on the 10th and the 20th.
And
so like they need to find a way to get the playoff earlier, tighten the schedule somehow. I don't know what the ultimate answer is. I know Joel Klatt has a proposal of moving Army Navy to the
week
the
0
beginning of the year and having that be the only game in quote unquote week 0, so it gets all the attention, and then you shift everything else
up a week.
I think that's
fine.
I think that's a pretty decent proposal, because
well, I think it's great because good or bad, Army Navy's a draw. You know what I mean? Like,
correct,
right? And it gives it still gives that game the attention.
Yeah, and you don't have to worry about like do we put a team in there we thought was going to be good and then they Florida Stated on us, that kind of thing.
Right.
And you're like, man, this team might not be good. It doesn't matter if Army and Navy are good.
Well, that and then Army Navy, because a lot of the times they're traveling to different stadiums, it makes it an attraction week 0. The first college football game can be played in Dublin. It can be played in MetLife. It can be played at Jerry World. It can be played at wherever. I mean, and that's going to get a ton of people there because it's Army Navy. Like I think putting it at the front half of the year, I think putting it at the front half of the year makes more sense than probably anything that we could try to come up with in the next.
I think it improves the draw for that game by a ton.
Yeah, it kicks off the year. People are aware of it.